there, my name is Megan Fountain, and I am the Latino Children's Ministry Director here at Mission Adelante.
And I'm Shannon Schaefer, Operations Director.
We're so thankful that you're taking the time, this important time today, to learn a little bit about why child protection and background screening are really important to us here. We want to keep the kids safe, but we also really want to make sure that we set a good example and help keep you guys above reproach in that process. So thank you for taking the time to listen to this. Get a cup of coffee, get comfortable. It's probably going to be a little bit. And I'd also encourage you maybe to have a notebook and a pencil just to take notes in case you have questions for the quiz that we're going to give you later.
Okay, so I'm going to give a little bit of background, why we have a child protection policy, and then the steps that it requires to volunteer. Hopefully you've already gone through those steps, and just give a brief summary of that, and then we will jump into the meat of the child protection policy. So the essence of our calling at Mission Adelante is to stand with vulnerable members of our community. And the children are some of the most vulnerable, and their friendship is entrusted to us, and we take that responsibility very seriously. To provide a safe and healthy physical and emotional environment, we've adopted a child protection policy that includes training for staff, volunteers, and the children, giving clear guidelines on expected practices and providing a pathway to report and deal with any suspected instances of abuse. So for some definitions, before we get started, a child, we consider anyone under the age of 18. We also refer to them as minors. Abuse is any act that harms a child, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, or sexual. Any act of physical aggression, such as intentional hitting, slapping, or kicking, will be considered abuse for the purposes of this policy, even if no injury is evident. Any sexual act, inappropriate touching, or act of exposing a child to sexually explicit material will be considered abuse for the purpose of this policy as well. Also, not written here, but also important, for mental and emotional abuse, we need to just be very careful with our words and how the child, how that affects their mind and what they think of themselves and how they are developing. So a volunteer is any person serving in Mission Adelante's ministry without compensation. So that includes summer interns and appointees who are in the process of coming on staff with Mission Adelante. Staff members are any employee compensated by Mission Adelante, and this includes our apprentices. So the steps that you've gone through already, hopefully, to be able to work with children is a background check where we run just a history, make sure that you don't have any history of abuse, or if there are criminal offenses, we need to know that and to evaluate those. 90%, 99% of our volunteers have no issues that come up, but that is a precaution that we take. We want to keep the children as safe as we can. An important part of that also is just to fill out an application, and that asks some questions about your past. It also just gives you an opportunity to share a little bit more about your spiritual journey. And at the end of that application, we ask for 2 character references to be able to speak to people who know you, that can attest to what kind of person you are, how you deal with children, and that sort of thing, as another way to just get to know you a little bit more. And of course, our staff members will be also kind of getting to know you so that they feel comfortable working with you and your just how you are. We have, and you might notice this, in very rare instances, such as minors who want to work with kids, if you're under 18, we've discovered that running a background check, most things that are sealed. So doing a background check really is not going to reveal anything. So if we are not able to run a meaningful background check, what we will do is ask for a pastoral reference, or if someone on staff is familiar with you, they've worked with you as you were growing up, or know you personally, they can provide a reference in lieu of the background check. So I wanted to explain what that kind of meant there in the protection policy. So we do affirm God's grace, and if you do have something in your past that would show up on a background check, or something that you want to disclose that maybe might not even come up on a background check, please talk to us about that. It will not automatically exclude you. Now, if it is abuse of a child, that automatically will exclude you from working with children. It does not mean that you cannot be a part of our community. But other things that might be things that have happened in the past, the more open you are, we will talk to references and just, talk to you. Is that in your past? Is that something that will affect your time volunteering with the kids? And as long as we can feel comfortable that is clearly in the past, that it will not be impacting your volunteering with the kids. A couple of members of the leadership team, myself and another person, will look into that and make the decision whether we're comfortable having you volunteer with the kids. So enough of the nitty-gritty. Let's have Megan jump into kind of the meat of our child protection policy.
We've put a lot of thought into thinking about all the possible questions you might have and ways that you can be a great example to the kids in this process too. So all of these are going to be guidelines for interaction. Sometimes these will be things that you'll actually come across and sometimes they won't. Shannon and I are both here, and all the program heads are there anytime you have questions. So please, as we go through some of these things, even if you have a question, jot it down and ask us, because we'd rather you ask us than not. So setting a good example. Just to talk a little bit about that, a key responsibility for volunteers and staff that work with teens and work with children is to set a good example for them, both in speech and in action. And so we really ask that the volunteers and the staff dress modestly, speak respectfully, and demonstrate appropriate physical boundaries. Sometimes this is a place that the kids and the teens are learning that, so that's why we want to be a good example of that. Considerations for speaking respectfully include refraining from profanity, jokes with sexual or racially biased themes, and name calling. Again, these are common sense things, but we just want to be able to make sure we're all on the same page. Appropriate physical touch. This is important because you might say, well, what does that consist of? It is when it's on the head, the shoulders, the arms, the hands, and the upper back. Another thing I would say is kids over the age of 5 should not be sitting in laps. Sometimes there might be a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old and they need to be comforted, and that's okay. But kids over the age of 5 should be encouraged to sit next to the adult of the opposite gender rather than in their lap. And one thing we really, really want to highlight, physical contact. It should be in response to the need of the child and not the need of the adult. If I'm having a bad day and one of the kids comes in for the program, because I'm having a bad day, it's not okay for me to reach out to that child for that physical contact. If that's a natural thing that the child initiates, then that's great. But just being aware of that and where we are, I think it helps us to be healthier in that. Touch should be age appropriate and generally initiated by the child, and it should be with the child's consent, and any resistance from the child should be respected. Discipline. The easiest way that I would say to handle discipline is just let the program head handle it. If there's something that you feel uncomfortable with, or a kid's being really disrespectful, come to us. That's what we're here for. We want to be able to help support you in that. And there should be again, common sense, no yelling, no public humiliation, no name calling or physical punishment. And we just want to make sure that you feel supported at all times to be calm and positive with the kids. Sometimes these kids are coming from really, really challenging family situations, and this is a calm place for them. This is a place of peace. So if you can think about that in those situations, that's helpful.
Right. So to stress, discipline should be positive. It should be redirection, incentives, never negative, yelling, name calling, never physical. Really stress that positive. And if it's something beyond you, they're not getting through, get Megan or your program lead involved, and they can help you with that child.
Mm-hmm. Great. Let's talk about the bathroom. These are important things, because if you have a little kid and they need assistance in the bathroom, how should you handle that, right? Sometimes we've heard about things happening places in the world, and so we want to unpack that a little bit. So if you think about it, kids that are 6 and under, so remember that age, 6 and under, should not be sent to the bathroom alone. we should have a volunteer. Usually, for example, in Kids Adelante on Thursday nights, all the girls go to the bathroom together in the littlest kids group, and all the boys go to the bathroom, and they're all together with either the male or the female volunteer. None of the bathrooms here have stalls, so only one kid in the bathroom at a time. And so if I'm taking the girls to the restroom, for example, I would have girl number one go in, make sure the door is unlocked, but she didn't close it, and then I would wait outside. If she needed assistance, I would, if I am under 18, I cannot go in. I have to get someone that's over 18. And you could grab me, you could grab any of the other women that are over 18. If you're over 18, then that's great, you're good. Now, what happens if you're a guy in that situation? Same thing. If you are over 18, you can go in and you could grab one of us too if you needed assistance. Sometimes that happens. But if you're under 18 and you're considered a minor, you cannot go in to assist with anything with that.
Right. And so if in the case of a guy, he would be with guys. So if you, for some reason, were a guy taking a girl to the bathroom, waiting outside, and she needed assistance, you would want to get a female over 18 to help you with that situation. Now, ideally, it would be a female that's already taking them. But in that rare instance, like a guy should never enter the bathroom with a female.
Mm-hmm. Right, and I mean, another common sense thing, don't use the bathroom in front of the kids. We know these things, right? Don't do that. If you are in the middle of a group and you have to take a kid to the bathroom, just check in. I'm like, Shannon, I got to take Diego to the bathroom. Well, I wouldn't take Diego, right, because I'm a girl. Shannon, I need to take Crystal to the bathroom real fast. Shannon goes, great. And Shannon's going to be aware, if I'm gone for 10 minutes, she might, tag in another volunteer and be like, hey, can you go make sure that they're okay and they don't need me back up? We just... Again, I know this is probably pretty detailed, but these are situations that we want to be above reproach on, and we have such great volunteers that want to take good care of the kids. So that's why we try to train really well on the front end.
Right, and an important thing. So our protection policy is for the children in our care to make sure that they are safe, but it also protects our volunteers from accusation, from just the suspicion of something inappropriate occurring. So these things are also for our volunteers to keep them safe too, so that everything is above reproach. Avoid the appearance of evil in any ways possible.
So if they're under 6, they need a friend. If they're above 6, they can go by themselves. But the same thing again. If they're gone for 10 minutes, unless they're having some kind of stomach issue, send someone to go check on them, or you go check on them. Just kind of the advice I would have about this is just be aware. Just be aware of the situation. Moving on to visibility, we always want, let's play out a situation. Let's say that there is a kid that Shannon is working with, and they had a problem happen in the middle of a leaders in training group. And Shannon, out of respect for the child, isn't going to, discipline that kid in front of everyone. She's going to wait till the end of the group, dismiss the kids, and say, hey, Dashel, why don't you hang out and we're going to talk for a second about what happened today. But let's say that the room that Shannon is working in maybe doesn't have a window in the door, but she wants to close the door so there's a little bit of privacy. Then Shannon needs to go find a room so that if I walked by, I could look and see, oh, everything's cool in that room. They're just having a conversation. You really want to try. Don't be alone in a room with a kid with the door closed, right? Because it's all back to that being above reproach. So just kind of keeping that in mind if those situations arise. If something happens and you have to have that conversation in that room, just leave the door open a little bit so that anybody walking by could be able to see what you're doing. As far as transparency, we are here to serve the kids. We love them. And we want to make sure that we're not bringing our baggage and our bad days and things like that into working with the kids. So we want to make sure, it's okay to say, hey, I had a bad day, but, I don't want to download everything that's going on in my life with a 6-year-old, so just being transparent that we want to be able to gain their confidence, but we also want to be able to know that it's about them.
Right, to leave the child, let the child be the child.
Yes, let the child be the child. And similarly with transparency, we always want to put them in a position where they don't have to, be keeping secrets and things like that. So again, it's about not bringing that stuff in so that they feel like they have to guard something for you, if that makes sense. Is there anything you want to add to that?
So the same way that physical touch should be responding to the need of the child, conversation and communication should be in the need of the child, not the need of the adult. So yeah, there should be never a circumstance where the adult is like, oh, I need you to keep this a secret. If it's not something that they can share with everyone, then they don't need to know that.
Right. Unless it's like you're bringing cupcakes next week, like that's okay.
Yeah.
We support those kinds of secrets.
Right.
As far as overnight trips, this really only would affect probably the teens volunteers and then the leaders and training volunteers. We just have the rule that there, no matter how many kids are in the room, and don't worry, it won't be a lot, there has to be 2 adults. So again, going with the gender rule, the boys would be with the boys, the girls would be with the girls, and then there would have to be 2 volunteers. You would never have a male volunteer and then a group of 3, 4 boys. Interaction outside of Mission Adelante activities. So we encourage that. We're so excited when you want to spend time with the kids, with the teens, because that's sometimes where some of the sweetest relational time can occur. But we want to make sure that you guys know outside of official activities that there are certain rules that we need to follow. Mentoring interactions to take place in public places, like a restaurant, library, the ice cream shops, those are a great place to go. And of course, you have to have the parental permission. Usually I'd encourage you, if Shannon was a volunteer and came to me and said she wanted to take Crystal out for ice cream, she would connect with me and I would connect with mom and organize that, especially if there's a language barrier. She wouldn't just decide on her own to do that. There's a check-in just so that, we've got your back in that situation if something happens and mom doesn't know where the kid is and one of you guys are out with the volunteers. Like, we want to have your back and be able to support you in that too.
Right. Never take the child's word for it that, oh yeah, mom gave me permission to go with you. You need to communicate with Megan, or if you're bilingual and can speak with the parent, or if the parent speaks English, make sure that you spoke with the parent, or that it wasn't just the child saying, oh yeah, that's fine. Because they need to know, the parent needs to be aware of where their child is and who they're with.
So let's say you're going to pick up a kid to go to the ice cream shop, and you get there and none of the parents are home and they have to run back inside and grab their coat. And they're like, oh, just come in for a minute. You got to wait outside because there's no adult there. There's no one over 18. Again, being above reproach, right? So that's something small, but to be aware. What happens if you want to bring a couple kids into your home? That's great. We love that. Some of the best times have happened with cookie making parties and doing things, service projects, or even just movie nights. That's great. But again, you have to have another volunteer there. We wouldn't want a volunteer alone in their home with a group of kids, right? These are all things I think we know. It's just good to have a refresher.
Right. Just avoiding any appearance of wrongdoing, just being completely above reproach.
So let's talk about transportation, because this can get a little bit tricky. Before you would be able to take the kids outside of Mission Adelante for an activity, we would need a copy of your driver's license and your insurance. So this would be like if there was a field trip or Great Wolf Lodge or a camping trip. If you were going to go, well, I can ask Shannon this question. Let's say I'm a new volunteer and I want to take a kid to the ice cream shop. Do I still need to give that information to you since it's just kind of a smaller activity?
If it's something that your relationship with them is because of Mission Adelante, if their parents said, oh, this is the Mission Adelante volunteer, it's best just that we know that you are legally able to drive and have insurance in case something were to happen. Okay. Now, if it's something that you've established a relationship with the family, and then that's more outside of Mission Adelante context. But to be safe, it's always best if we know that you're able to drive, especially if you are representing Mission Adelante to the family.
So that's why, again, it's good to check in with the program head, get their take on it, and then they can ask you that. Seatbelts. Everyone needs to be in seatbelts. You can ask some of the teens, it's their biggest irritation in life. I will not start the car until everyone has their seatbelt on. The safest place for a kid under the age of 12 is to sit in the back seat. And then kids under the age of 4 must use a properly installed car seat. And then kids between the ages of 4 and 7 can use a booster seat. Do we expect you to have those things in your car? No. But we do expect when you go to pick up the kids that you ask the parents for that. And if they don't have that, I don't know, Shannon, what do we do if they don't have that?
If they don't have that, we are responsible for transporting the kids safely. So if you don't have that and they don't have that, unfortunately, we aren't able to transport them. If the parent is home, maybe you're able to do something at their home. Potentially, you could help them. If the parent doesn't have that, and they should, that's a safety concern. So maybe that's something you speak with Megan about and say, you know,
it's a learning point for the parents, right?
They didn't have a booster seat. Is there some way that we can help them or talk with them, educate them about that? So no, we want to transport them safely, and that is more important than the inconvenience of saying, I can't transport you today.
Okay, that makes sense. So we want, again, you're going to hear this theme throughout the whole presentation here, to be above reproach. So we don't want you to be alone in a car with a kiddo. When you are taking multiple kiddos home, let's say I'm taking Diego, Crystal, and Lucy home. I don't need to be dropping Diego off last, so I'm alone in the car with him. So I could drop him off first, I could drop him off second, just so long as Lucy or Crystal are the last kid in the car with me. And it goes the same when we're also picking up. I wouldn't go pick up Diego first. He'd be the second or the third child. So let's say you go to a home and there's a brother and a sister. That's great. So bring them both in. You don't have to like pick up the girl and then go back for the boy later. So I know sometimes that can be a little tricky, and so you need to think about when you're picking up and dropping off the order of how you're going to do that. And again, we're here if you have questions about that, or you usually won't have a big group of kids. If you're a girl, you're going to be working with girls. It would be more if there was a larger function, you were going to have like a cookie decorating party at your house and you were going to pick up a couple kids. And so it's important as you're planning those events to think through all of those aspects as well, and we're here to help you with that too.
Right. So you can be alone with the person of the same gender. It's always best if there are siblings or people that you can drop off at the same location to drop two off last or pick two up first. But under no circumstances should you be alone in the vehicle with a child of the opposite gender.
Last thing is make sure that they get safely inside. Now, a moment of vulnerability here. Our program or executive director, I was dropping his daughter off one night. She's a little bit older, but she was still under 18, and I had other people in the car, and I left, and she didn't have a key to get in, and no one was home. So she thankfully had a phone, and she called me, and I was super embarrassed. So we're all going to make mistakes in this, and that's okay. But when you go to drop those kids off, just wait those extra 1 or 2 minutes till they get up, they get inside, you're waved at, and then you can take off, because we don't want them to be sitting outside. Because, that's a whole other concern. So,
right.
Did you want to add anything to that? Are we good?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Now, this is the trickiest one. Online communication. We live in an age of Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat, and I don't even know what else is out there. Sometimes I feel really old about some of the things that are out there. So we have some really specific rules about this, not just to protect the kids, but to protect you. We recognize, if you didn't know this, I'm about to tell you, that the teens use social media as their primary mode of communication. And honestly, many of the kids do as well. So that, in respect with the teens, online communication can be a really great tool in mentoring them. But because it's changing all the time, the potential for abuse, it's just growing and growing. So to protect both you and the teens and the kids, these are the following guidelines that we ask you guys to really commit to. The adult volunteers and the staff, we can have contact with the minors in the public forums such as Facebook, but not on private and temporary communication apps like Snapchat and Kik. I didn't even know that was one, did you? Adults may be friends with a child or teen in our ministry, as long as both the adult and the child are also friends with the program director. I'm going to read that one more time. Adults may be friends with the child or the teen, as long as they are also friends with the program director. Why is that? Because if you are posting things that are inappropriate and the teens or the kids can see that, you and I are not friends, that puts you in a compromising situation being a character model. And we love you, we want to support you, and maybe you didn't even realize that it came across that way. Doesn't mean we're checking up on you. It does mean that it just gives extra accountability for both you and the teens, and even for us, because it's the same rule for us too.
Right. Remember, you should be a role model for the students when they're here, but also when they are seeing you through online communication. And so if you're Facebook friends with Megan and you were to post something, she could privately message you and say, I don't think that content is appropriate for the kids. Would you make that either private so they can't see it, or if you are friends with program participants, say, would you please take that down if it's something that is extremely inappropriate?
So what that means is, I mean, hopefully you're not going to be posting things like that, but if you have kids that are wanting to friend you, you don't have to accept that. You can keep that in mind. But you and I will still be friends because we use Facebook as our communication as a team too. But don't feel like you have to accept friends from anyone else. That's absolutely up to your discretion. This is a super important one. So let's say you come to Kids Adelante and you take these great pictures and you want to put them on Facebook. Well, you can't tag the kids, even if you're friends. Because if you think about this logically, let's say you take a picture of Juan and you upload it. If his name tag is there, then someone knows where he is, when he's there, and what his name is. And so we're just trying to, keep the kids safe in that. But let's say you take that great picture and you really want Juan's mom to see it. Maybe you and Juan's mom are friends, and so you can tag mom. Or if I upload a picture and I don't tag the kids, I might just say tag yourself in it if you'd like to. It's again just kind of helping so that we're not the ones connected and liable with that. So just ask yourself, we're not telling you all these things so you're, overanalyzing everything. It's just a safety check. Okay, so do I need to do this or do I need to do that? And again, if you have questions, ask us.
Right. It's like communication, like physical touch. This is again putting it in the child or their parents' boat so that if they want to tag their child in it or if they want to identify the child, that is their responsibility. But on our end, we want to also just maintain privacy. Maybe the parent doesn't want their child's a photo out there is different than photo with identifiers with other information. So we try to be very respectful of the family's privacy as well.
Sure, that makes sense. This one is pretty common sense, but let's say you might be, maybe one of the kids friends you and you're like, sure. And then they send you a message and they say, I've had a really bad day. This happened at school. I'm really upset. That's not a conversation you're going to want to get into over social media, even if it's a private message. You're going to want to have those more deep and spiritual conversations face to face. So if that situation were to play out, and that situation has played out with me, I'm saying, oh my gosh, I'm praying for you. You know what? Tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to come get you. We're going to go do this. We're going to go to that, and we're going to talk. You don't want to create that, or I should say continue, because they're so used to that form of communication, having them connect with you that way. The best thing in that situation is maybe if it's serious, obviously let us know. But if not, let's go out and let's go hang out tomorrow and talk about it face to face. And then, and this is, again, you guys are gracious and wonderful. A lot of this is common sense, but we have to say it. It's never acceptable to send to a minor or receive from a minor electronic material that is sexually explicit, racially charged, or profane. All right, so I'm going to hand it back over to Shannon. If a procedure arises, whether it's with the kids, whether it's with another volunteer, whether, God forbid, it's with me, Shannon is going to unpack for you a little bit, what do you do in that situation?
Right. So we take all allegations and concerns seriously. So we encourage, if you see something, say something.
I like that. If you see something, say something.
I think I stole that from somewhere. So if you are concerned with something that's going on, maybe it's not something that has happened here, but a child has come, they're bruised, there are things, talk with Megan. Ask the child, what? And if that is concerning to you, bring Megan into it. We also want to be aware and know that we want to protect the children even if the abuse is not happening here. And if the situation warrants that we potentially could get the authorities involved if we do suspect child abuse. We are not mandatory reporters. However,
I am.
Okay,
Megan, I'm a teacher, so I actually am.
Okay, so
would you explain what that is too, because people might not necessarily know what that is.
Right. So there are some occupations where if you suspect abuse, you are legally bound to report it. Churches, it's a little bit gray, but we're not required to report suspected abuse. However, morally, we want to protect the kids, and so if we do suspect abuse, we do take that seriously and want to make sure that the child is okay. So it is something we want to talk to your supervisor and get, in this case, Megan or your program director, and get them involved so that we can take further steps to see if we do need to notify authorities. But in the case of abuse or suspected abuse at mission on Adelante. If you have a concern with another volunteer, or if a child has said something to you, you need to report that directly to the program director. So whoever's in charge of your program, report that to them. Please don't talk and gossip with others. Like, we want it just to go straight to Megan, who will report it to Jarrett. And I will also most likely be involved, but Jared, our executive director, is who will handle anything that is serious allegations. And we take all allegations seriously because we need to protect the children. But we do not want gossip to start, and we want to respect the privacy of the child and the volunteer. So Jarrett will be the person who heads that up, who involves authorities if that is deemed necessary, who, if anyone talks with the media, that will be Jarrett. So please, after you've reported that to Megan, she will talk to Jarrett, and Jarrett will most likely speak with you as well. But please let us handle that. We do not want to sweep things under the rug. That's not our intention. We take our obligation to protect the children seriously.
And I will say that's never happened. This is just kind of worst case scenario. We're playing that out where Jared had to get on the news for something like that. So, but this is just so you know if something like that happens.
All of our protection policy is to avoid this.
Yes.
But yes, just kind of if this were to happen, what the steps would be. So if a volunteer is accused of something, that volunteer will no longer be able to volunteer until they are cleared. So they will discontinue volunteering immediately, and until the investigation has run its course and they have been cleared of all wrongdoing, will they be allowed to volunteer again. So we do take it seriously and want to make sure that all of our kids are safe.
Yeah.
So training. So this may be your first training, or this might be a retraining.
What happens if I'm that person, Shannon? Right?
Good question. So if you see Megan do something inappropriate, talk directly to myself or to Jarrett. You can find my email on our website. But if it is Megan,
God forbid, but
who is being accused, then we just want to jump over her. Good question. Any other questions, Megan?
No.
Okay, sorry.
Just wanted to say that.
Yeah. So training. We want to be training the students on this too. So I'm jumping, but the LIT students especially, and the teens, that they can be aware of what is appropriate boundaries and what is appropriate and what is inappropriate when it comes to language, and so we also want to be training them on this, and once a year kind of go over some of the basics. Staff is retrained on our child protection policy annually, and volunteers are retrained every 2 years. So that will include rereading the policy and watching the video, just as a way to refresh your memories, have that clear in your mind again.
So thanks in advance for that. If you continue on.
We also rescreen. So just because you pass the background check at one point doesn't mean you haven't done anything done anything while you've been working with the children. So we do a rescreen every 2 years just to make sure everything comes back again. You do not have to redo the application. You do not have to redo references. If you are a minor, someone who is not able to be rescreened, at this point hopefully you are over 18 and we can do a background check. But if we aren't able to do a background check, then we're instituting something called volunteer peer review, which is we'll talk to one of the volunteers who works with you, who's not related, and just, we'll send them a form that just says, please let us know, you see anything that is a red flag that we should be aware of, how are they doing with the kids?
And we choose that, right?
Right. So we will approach them and say, this person is coming up on their rescreening, and just, want to make sure that they're doing a good job, and just make sure there's nothing we need to be aware of. So if you would, and we've gotten through this, if you have any questions, please feel free to find Megan, your program director, or myself. I would be happy to answer any questions that you might still have. So once you're done here, there is a form that we need you, a quiz to take that just has some important things that we've reviewed today, just to make sure that you've listened and have read the policy. And yeah, so thank you so much for hanging in there with us. And
have a great day.